One, I want to welcome you to our entrepreneurship class again. We are going to look at Unit 5, and Unit 5 is about standardization. So in this unit, we are going to discuss the meaning of a standard. We shall see examples of standards. We shall discuss the role of standards in daily life, in business, in other aspects of life, and we shall see the process of standardization. Our references are CBC book 4, and then we shall also use the RSB website. Before we begin our topic about standardization, let us think about the items that we use in daily life. So you can take examples of items you use in class, like pens, like books. We have things like mosquito nets, shoes, clothes, water bottles, or even mineral water bottles. We have bed sheets, body jelly, water tanks, television, DVD players, balls, goalposts, books, tracks, car tires, memory cards that we put in phones, chairs, medicine, and so on. So all these items, most of them are manufactured items. So standards have to be used when they are manufacturing these items. You take an example of a phone. When you buy a phone, it should have a charger, but that charger should be of a given size. So you may find that different companies that make phones, they can be, you the user, you can use the same phone, maybe to charge Samsung, to charge Tecno, and some other phones. So why do you think companies do that? Before we dive into understanding what standardization is, let's take this scenario. Have you ever wondered how the first calculator looked like, or the first computer? So can you compare that first calculator with now the calculator that you carry in class on a daily basis? So the image in this slide shows an example of how the first calculator looked like. You just imagine if you had to carry it every day into your class, what would happen to you? So let's now see the role of standards in business. So in our introduction, we want to understand what a standard is in reality. So taking an example of our example that we have seen in the beginning about the calculator. So in the beginning, there was chaos. Oh, nothing existed. So like these days when you move in towns, you see everything is on plan. Government has a master plan for each and every place in the country. But before, nothing existed. So people just lived anyhow without any clear plans or standards that they were following. So like I've said in the beginning, there was just chaos. So you saw the example of the calculator. It was as big as a house. So when standards were introduced, they brought about order. So there is need to be a standard for anything made by human beings. So human beings will make so many things, like in factories. Anything that is made by human being has to be standardized for it to be acceptable for use and consumption by a given community or by people. at the beginning we asked ourselves, what is a standard? So we are going to see the meaning of standard according to ISO definition for a standard. ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization. So we are going to see how this organization defines a standard. So a standard is a document established by a consensus and approved by a recognized body that provides for common and repeated use, rules, guidelines for characteristics, for activities or their results aimed at achievement of the optimal degree of order in a given content. We have seen that a standard is a document which is established by consensus. So a document, what does it mean? It means that it is compiled information which can act as reference whenever people want to find out about something. And then consensus is an agreement. So a document which guides people on doing a certain activity or certain activities, we can refer to it as a standard. So a standard is all about rules, regulations that guide people when they are doing a given activity or when they are producing a given product, so that now that product is not harmful to the users or to the environment. So a document which gives characteristics of a given product or activities which have to be done to give a given result of outcome or a given product is the one that we refer to as a standard. So in this case, we're going to see some examples of standards. For instance, we can see that the inch is a standard for measurement. When you are measuring length, you have to use an inch. It is a standard. Then money is the standard for payment. We all know that. Then words are standards for communication. If you are communicating, then you have to use words as a standard, even though we have some other ways of communicating, that like using sign language, but also sign language is a standard because when you make a sign, it is understood by everyone. It shouldn't be hidden or something that's so unique to you alone. Then you have like traffic lights are a safety standard. So all of us have used roads. So when you reach on the traffic lights, they will either tell you to stop or to get ready to go or to go. So those lights, they tell you what to do. So you respond to the lights to behave on the road. So we have another example of a standard is an octane number of gasoline. So when you go to buy fuel on the pump, those letters you see on the pump moving, those ones are a standard that they use to measure the amount of oil that a given driver is going to consume. Then you have, for instance, no more than 1% shrinkage can be a performance standard. For example, for organizations, you can say that in the manufacturing process, maybe only 2% of the products should be damaged. 98% of the product should come out as perfect products. Standards are at different levels. So we have international standards, like for global standards established by International Organization for Standardization. We have regional standards like for East African Community, COMESA or SADC and other trading blocs. Then we have national standards, like for Rwanda can have her own standards. Then you have association or interplant, so that's like industries developing standards like in manufacturing products of the same nature, like a telephone or like a television sets or like steel products and so on. So those plants, they can come together and form their own standards, or it can be for a single company. Then areas where standards are carried out, or subjects, we have engineering, we have industry, we have commerce, we have science, education, transport, housing or building, we have foods, agriculture, forestry, textiles, chemicals, among others. Then the aspects which are looked at into standards, we have basic aspects, we have specifications, we have sampling and inspection, we have test and analysis, we have limitation of variety, and then we have code of practice. Okay, let's continue our discussion by looking at the characteristics of a standard. So the basic characteristics of a standard should include the following. First of all, it should be voluntary. When making a standard, it should be something that is voluntarily done, not out of coercion. So it should, that's why we said in the beginning that it is by consensus. Then it should be open. It should be something that everyone can see or everyone can access or talk about, not something that is just imposed. And then you have, as you said, it is by consensus, it is through an agreement by different practitioners or by different professionals aiming at coming up with a common consensus or an agreement on how the product characteristics should look like. And then also it has to be public. When a standard is established or when it is formed, it has to be published, so that now different professionals or different parties can have a reaction or give comment or suggestions about it. Then you have another characteristics that there should be general purpose for society. So standards should be made for society or protecting the needs of consumers or the end users, or protect the environment, and it should be in good faith. Then you have object related. So by object related, it should be like aiming at a certain product. As we said that standard human beings, we manufacture or we make so many things. So each and everything that we make has to be standardized before it is consumed or before people use it. And the last one, it should be documented. So a standard should be documented. That's one of its characteristics, such that whoever needs to make that product or see how it is made, it has a reference or has a document that guides him or on how to see what constitutes that product. When a standard is being designed, the following is expected to come out of it. Number one, market relevance. So market relevance, like that standard should make sure that the product that will be produced when it is used, it will be able to meet the needs of the consumers or the users of the product, and it should not discourage people from consuming that product. Maybe if it makes it too expensive for the local people to afford it. Another thing is that it should be a basis for fair competition. When designing a product, it should put the designers should make sure that standard does not discourage competition, or it makes some people to benefit and make others lose by making it hard for others to use and maybe fairing others to use it. Another one is improving market growth. So a standard should be designed in a sense that it should encourage the market to grow, not to discourage the market for those products to reduce. We have also not too detailed but unambiguous. So when designing a product, a standard for a given product, it should not be too detailed to make it hard to understand, but it should not also be ambiguous, like using words which are not easily understood or that mean more than, that have more than one meaning. So in this case, a standard should meet this expectation of not being too detailed but not also ambiguous. Then you have detailed enough in order to understand by the users. So the user should be able to understand the standard. For instance, if you are going to buy a new phone, there is always a manual that is put in the packaging. So if you want to use the phone but you don't know how to use it, you can read that manual and be able to understand it and use the phone or assemble any other product yourself. So one of the expectations is that the standard should be detailed enough in order to be understood by someone who is going to use the product. And then another expectation is that it should be technology based. So standards should be technology based in such a sense that you can use the available technology to detect or to understand how it was developed or to have scientific proof about it. And also should easily and fast adaptable to new technologies. For instance, different apps on smartphones. So different apps on smartphones, they can easily be adaptable, or you can use them on different smartphones. Regardless of the phone that you have, you can install those applications. They have been made in such a way that they can be used on different technologies, and also usable in different social and economic environments. So a standard should be made in such a way that it can be used in different social and economic environments. We are going to discuss the benefits of standards. However, we have to understand this. Standards have become an integral component of our economic, social, and legal systems, but they are frequently taken for granted, and their crucial role in modern society is often not recognized. The RSB Standards Division has responsibility and experience in its core function. So what's the function of RSB Standards Division? It has responsibility to develop national standards and maximize the benefits of international standards through adoptions, which enhance the competitiveness of the Rwandan industry and advance international trade. So in Rwanda, our standards enhance competitiveness and provide the basis for let us discuss the benefits of standards to consumers. First of all, standards ensure that consumers are protected from hazards to their health and safety. So you can take an example. If you are going to do wiring for your house, you have to ensure that the wires that you are going to use have been certified, or they are the real wires that have been recommended by Rwanda Standards Board. Otherwise, your house can be burnt by fire, which will be caused by electricity. And for the purpose of your health, for instance, should consume products or foods which are certified with an S mark. So that shows that that product is safe for your health and will not cause any harmful effect on your health. Second, standards promote and protect economic interests of consumers. So in this case, products should be made in a sense that they respect the interests of consumers in terms of their economic status. So take an example of, say, the consumption of power by given gadgets. Take an example of mobile phones. So some mobile phones can be charged and they can be used for a long time. Others are charged and they can be used for less time. However, the cost of using these machines or these gadgets shouldn't be very expensive, or their maintenance. So when products are being made, they have to ensure that they put into consideration the economic interests of consumers. So products that are made for, say, low-income earners or products for high-income earners, they should be clearly identified by standards. Or to add on, standards ensure that consumers have easy access to and greater choice in goods and services. So when standards are made, they have to ensure that the ability by individuals to select from among many should be put into consideration. So when standards are being made, different categories or sections of individuals in different social and economic status has to be considered, such that each category of consumers has access to these products, even though they may not be exactly the same, but when they serve almost the same purpose. Next, standards ensure improved quality and reliability. So by putting standards in place, the quality of products and their reliability is also improved. Take an example of weighing scales. So weighing scales have to be reliable. So that's why RSB always encourages business people to take their weighing scales for calibration each and every year, so that now they ensure that they are reliable and they will not cheat customers. And then even the quality of products that is the quality of products put on market should also be taken into consideration, such that people are not cheated by paying for products which they would otherwise buy at lower costs when they are inflated. Next, is standards ensure better operation and compatibility between products and services. So now here about compatibility is like how one product can be used with another product. Take an example of a remote control for the television or for DVD player. You can use one remote control on different television sets or on different types of DVD players. So in that case, it was made in such a way that if you have it, you can use it on different products. That's what we call compatibility. Or like we take an example of, say, telephone chargers. You can use a telephone charger to charge different types of phones, but of different companies, but a charger from a given producer. So that's is an example of compatibility of products and services. Then you have standards ensure the availability of effective consumer redress. So in this point, we mean that redress is the legal justice that consumers get in case products they buy from the market are not of good quality, or if they cause harm to themselves. So sorry, if they cause harm to them. So if you buy a product, for instance, a body cream, and it causes it makes your skin to bleach, or it causes skin diseases, you have a right to complain, so that now you get compensation for the damage that that product has caused. So these products are made following certain standards. So if they do not follow the standards and they cause problems to consumers or the end users, then the end users have a right to claim through the legal jurisdiction, and then they are compensated for the damages caused by the product. Let's look at the benefits of standards to small and medium enterprises. First of all, standards lower the installation and the startup costs. So installation costs, they are costs incurred to start running the production system of a given enterprise. Take an example of assembling machines, installation of electricity, and so on. So all the equipments, assembling them, the costs involved, we call them now the installation cost. So if those equipments were made using following standards, it is very easy for the operators or the technicians to assemble them within the shortest time possible, so that since they have clear guidelines on how to install them. And then the startup costs will also be low, because the time spent and then the research which is made to figure out how the whole system will operate is very easy, since data is readily available through the documents of standards. Second, standards inspire added trust in your business. So if you are going to operate a given business and you follow standard guidelines provided by Rwanda Standards Board, then your business will have much trust in public and also from the regulators of businesses in the country. For example, Rwanda Standards Board or any other legal institution that is in charge of business operation in the country, like RURA. To continue, standards assist business to meet mandatory regulations. So we all know that following standards in production of goods and services is mandatory in the country, even though we saw that many people do not know about standards or do not respect them as they operate. However, standards have to be respected, and it is a mandatory that rules and regulations governing business operations have to be respected. Next, standards ensure improved quality and reliability. So when standards are respected, the quality of goods and services put on market will be of good quality, and they will be reliable. Standards create a competitive advantage by improving the quality of your goods and services. So with the competitiveness, it means that you are able to outcompete other producers of the same product, or you can be able to match with the competition on the market if your goods and services are standardized. Next, standards open in new markets by ensuring new customers that you meet their quality requirements. So by observing quality standards, businesses are able to attract new customers to their premises, since they know that these businesses are able to meet the quality requirements of their needs. Standards attract new customers. That one we have discussed it already. It enables businesses to get more customers to buy from them. Then standards reduce cost in the way you do business. So when you follow strict standards, the cost of operating a given business completely reduce. So these are some of the benefits of standards to small and medium enterprises. Let's discuss the benefits of standards to government. First of all, standards benefit the Rwandan government by implementing regulations and promoting international trade. So since the establishment of Rwanda Standards Board came into existence, so many regulations pertaining the mandate of this institution have been put in place. So through businesses respecting these regulations, then that will be an achievement for the Rwandan government to streamline business operation in the country. Secondly, it promotes the Rwandan products on the international market, and we all know the benefits of selling products on international market, that it strengthens our economy by generating foreign exchange and even marketing our country abroad. Number two, standards reduce technical barriers to international trade, therefore positioning Rwandan industries to compete in the world market. So the technical barriers, these are the legal requirements that different countries put in place for importers or exporters of products in those countries should ensure that the products they export or import into those countries meet those specific criteria. So examples of technical barriers can include the size of the products, the weight of the products, the composition of the product, packaging of the product, marking and labeling of products. So you can see that different countries have different quality specifications. So you may find that they consider like the amount, the size of the product they are going to import in their country or export to them. They consider the weight of the product. They consider the composition, what constitutes that product. So there are some products which are prohibited in some countries, but they are acceptable in other countries. So standards are important to ensure that a given country, for instance, Rwanda, is able to access markets of other countries by ensuring that the products which are made, they match with the specifications or the legal requirements for those countries. For example, you can take a European Union, United States, and other markets around the world. So we have also that standards are used to regulate and monitor industry so as to prevent adverse business practices. So adverse business practices, those are situations which may result from business operation but which are not good. For example, environmental destruction. Some businesses may operate, but when they are destroying the environment. However, standards are there to make sure that businesses do not pollute the environment or do not harm the environment in any way. Other business practices which may not be good may include counterfeit products or selling products which do not meet the needs of the consumers, or which products are going to cause harmful consequences. For example, collapse of buildings. When materials used to construct buildings are not of good quality, buildings will collapse, and that will put the health of people at stake. Next, standards help make laws consistent. So we have already laws in place pertaining business operations, among which we have conformity to standards and the other legal requirements for products. So by implementing standards, then businesses will be conforming to the laws set by government to regulate business operations. Next is that standards offer an alternative to regulation with less red tape and business costs, while still ensuring that products and services are safe and healthy. So in this case, Rwanda Standards Board has hundreds of standards. So if one wishes to start up a given business, any type of business, be it bakery, be it a construction, be it a university, be it any form of business, Rwanda Standards Board has what you call service accreditation and product certification. So if you want to start a business, or either a service business or product business or trade business or manufacturing, standards have been already set. You can go to a Rwanda Standards Board and you buy a standard and you start operating. So in that case, you'll be reducing the red tape or the bureaucracy involved and the costs that you may incur to develop your own product, and also you will not pose health threat. Your products will not pose health threat to the public, and it will also be safe to be used. So let's move on to another category of users of standards, and these are the people in academia like us. Now we are studying about standards, so they are beneficial to us also as academicians. First of all, it's a source of knowledge. Now at least we have some idea on the meaning of standards and their importance. So now we can also support other people in the community to understand the importance of standards. They provide us with information that we can use in different ways. Like maybe when you want to also have our own businesses, now we have where we can go to, or where we can refer to for information pertaining about activity that you want to do. Also, in terms of academia, standards are based on the relevant consolidated findings of science, technology, and experience. So these standards they are not theoretical kind of explanations, but they are scientific. They have been proven using science and technology experience. So, and since we are now in the area of academics, we know the importance of science and we know the importance of technology. Lastly, in academia, standards may be used in education and for research. So you can go for you can take a profession which require you to study about standards, or you can even use these standards when you are doing research to accomplish your studies. So types of standards, as we saw above, we have international standards, we have regional standards, we have national standards, we have interplant or association, and we have company standards. All these standards reflect agreements on the technical description of the characteristics to be fulfilled by the product, by a system, a service, or object in question. So, like for international standards, they are widely adopted at regional or at national level and are applied by the manufacturers, trade organizations, purchasers or consumers, testing laboratories, governments, regulators, and other interested parties. So in developing standards, we have different individuals or different organizations which are involved. As we have said, we have testing laboratories. Like if you happen to go to Rwanda Standards Board, you have so many laboratories, over 40 of them, testing different items for each and every product that we use that is found on market, and even testing the reliability of the different weighing systems. We have governments are also interested. We have regulators and others. So let's now briefly talk about the benefits of international standards. Since most of the products produced, though they are consumed locally, but we also have hundreds of products that are exported to the outside world. So by following international standards, these are some of the key benefits that we enjoy as a country. International standards bring technological, economic, and societal benefits. How? They help to harmonize technical specifications of products and services, making industry more efficient and break down the barriers to international trade. So when Rwanda adheres to standards established by ISO, as we saw in the beginning, that reduces barriers and harmonizes the technical specifications of products and services which are made in Rwanda, and they can easily be marketed on the international market just as other countries are doing so. Next, international standards bring about conformity to the international standards, which help reassure consumers that products are safe, efficient, and good for the environment. We have discussed the benefits of standardization. Now we are going to move on to the standardization process. How are standards made? So standardization is the process of developing and implementing the technical specifications, which now we shall call standard. So the process of standardization generally comprises of 7 major phases. So phase 1 is identification of the need. So now in the first stage is for the user to identify a need, which has to be looked at and then develop a standard for it. The second phase is collective programming. So this stage reflects on the need identified and the priorities defined by all partners. So we said when developing a standard, different partners participate. So after identifying the need, then the partners will reflect on that need and identify the priorities where to start from. Then stage 3 is drawing up of a draft standard. The interested parties are represented by producers, distributors, users, consumers, administration, among others, meet and form standardization committees, and a draft standard is prepared. So these people, the committee meets and drafts a standard that can be now pushed on to the next phase. So let's go to phase 4. In phase 4, we call it consensus. As we have seen, when developing a standard, we said it is a document which is published after consensus. So in number 4, we have consensus now. In this phase, the views of all interested partners are taken into account. So examples of interested partners may include manufacturers, vendors, consumer groups, testing laboratories, government, engineering professionals, and researchers. So at consensus, these different parties that are interested in developing a given standard, they have to meet and reach a consensus. So the next phase is phase 5, which is validation. This is done in the form of public inquiry, involving all economic participants in order to be certain that the draft standard does not give rise to any major objections. So that different entities are involved. So after developing a draft standard and having a consensus on it by all the interested parties, we have seen that like testing laboratories, government, engineering professionals, research organizations, consumer groups, manufacturers, sellers, among others. Now it goes to validation. So validation is done by public inquiry. So they call upon every member of the public who may be interested in the standard to give his or her opinion about the standard before it is approved. So because if it is not put into public hearing or public inquiry, it may be objected by the end users or by the people that the standard is being made for. So now number 6 is approval. This phase is for the approval of the text for publication and the standard, as you have seen. So the approval is like the second last stage. So that one is before it is made a standard, then it has to be approved. Lastly is the review. The application of all standards forms the subject of regular assessment for its relevance by the standardizing body. This makes it possible to detect the time a standard must be adopted to new needs. So reviewing, so like when a standard is approved, it may operate, but every other time that standard can be revised by the standardizing body. Like in Rwanda, we said you have Rwanda Standards Board. It has the mandate to always review or revise the standards depending on the current needs of the beneficiaries of that standard. In conclusion, therefore, on how standards are made, any standard is a collective work of technical committees made of researchers, manufacturers, academia, government institutions, and consumers that work together to develop national standards that evolve to meet the demands of society and market. RSB, Standards Division, act as a secretariat to these committees and the project's manager in the production of standards.